Alright, so today we are going to talk about Lore Bow in the Dagger of Amon Ra. Now, before I get too far into it, if you enjoy what I do, I would love it if you'd click the like and the subscribe and the notification button and that stuff, because life does get in the way. I don't do this as frequently as I like to, so slamming that notification button will let you know when something pops up from me. So that'd be great. So if you watch the long play version of this, you'll see it tapered just above 9 hours. I believe like 9 hours and 12 minutes. And one of the things I wanted to point out, when I did that you will see the intro twice. So similar to what you're seeing now, you're seeing the text version of Lore Bow, because I am not kidding you. I bought this when it first came out, and I played it several times when it, over the years since it come out. And I'd always played the version I'd bought, which is basically the floppy version that I've extracted and I've been able to install and just play through like DOSBox. However, when I was talking about this on the Sierra Help forums, which, by the way, if you want to go to www.sierrahelp.com/forums, it's a great forum community there. I co-admin the forum. Collector is the one who runs the site and does the incredible installers. They actually told me, hey, why don't you do the talkie version? And I was actually shocked. I was like, there's a talkie version of Lore Bow 2? Or Lore Bow, the Dagger of Amon Ra? And they were like, yeah, the GOG version, GOG.com, where you can purchase a number of games. I don't get any affiliate credit, so you can just go there, do whatever. But the GOG version, which uses ScumVM, has the talkie version. So I went, every time a Sierra game comes out on GOG, I purchase it just to show support of that's the type of games I want. And so I installed it and used the ScumVM version, which doesn't allow me to capture, but thankfully, the Lore Bow game for Dagger of Amon Ra includes all of the files. For whatever reason, and there's a post on their forums about it, where I'm like, why do you strip out some of the files that make it impossible to use DOSBox, where it's easy to record? But anyway, I digress. I'm going way off topic here. Anyway, so thankfully, Lore Bow 2, all of the files, even though it uses ScumVM, are available. So what I did is I basically just took it, used it in DOSBox, and much to my surprise, there was actual, verbal talking parts. And I had never, ever played Lore Bow with the speaky version until I did this playthrough. So that was kind of like a first-time thing for me. I will say overall, I actually liked everyone throughout their speaking parts. The only one that kind of got on my nerves after a while was the narrator. Something about the way she spoke, it was very blah. And like there was no emphasis in it when she spoke. So it was, that was just me. But who am I to talk? She obviously got a professional job. I'm just doing these amateur Let's Play Sierra game videos. So there is that. Alright, so this is the intro of the non-talkie version. I'm probably going to zip through really quick with the talkie version of the game, of the intro. Just like what I tend to do is, if there's portions of the game I'm not talking about directly, I usually speed up that portion of the game. So it's still in there, it's not just cut out or whatever, it's just sped up a lot quicker. So you're not just listening to dead air. And that also makes these Let's Talk version of these Let's Play games much shorter. So there is that. So Act 1 officially starts. And I do like how Rhubarb, the first time he meets you, he calls you Laura Baines, which I'm pretty sure was an intentional nod to Police Quest, because the main villain of the Police Quest game was Jesse Baines. So just thought that was kind of cool. And you'll notice also, I'll point this out, and this is something I wanted to show, is in the non-talkie version, Rhubarb will actually quiz you on Egyptian lore. So you need the manual to look it up, and if you don't, basically you get the pink slip. But in the talkie version, it actually skips right over that. He just says, good luck on the case or whatever, and he does not actually quiz you. So that was one of the benefits of the talkie version, is not having to go into the manual every time I want to play the game. I will say this, since the talkie version is being sped up, I'm going to decrease the volume of the game, since it is being sped up from 9 hours to, right now it currently stands about 2 hours, but it'll probably get shortened again. Like I said, during portions where I'm not talking about the game, I'll kind of speed those up even more. So I'll probably reduce the actual volume of what's being said. So if you actually want to really hear what's happening, you can actually watch the 9-hour version. Or as I'm playing the game, I'll just kind of go through it. I will also apologize if you hear something that sounds like heavy breathing. I promise I'm not being creepy. I actually have 2 fans blowing on me because it's been really hot in San Diego these past few weeks. Like, exceptionally hot. Like, everyone is complaining about the heat. So if you hear anything that sounds like heavy breathing, I promise it's not me. So in this game, you kind of learn very quickly that Laura Bow has some naivety to her. Her luggage gets stolen while she's helping someone, and then someone else comes along and says, hey, you got any spare change? And then basically takes her whole wallet. So this is her first time in the big city of New York, so she is not used to dishonest people like this, which is kind of shocking, because in the first Laura Bow, she's in a haunted mansion. Sorry, she's in a mansion with a bunch of people who are all there pretty much for financial gain, or Colonel Dijon. So she should be very familiar with like people who are shisty. Alright, so Act 1 officially starts, and what the premise of the story is, there has been a theft at the Egyptian museum where this very famous Dagger of Amon has been stolen. And you are invited to basically attend this museum opening and try to kind of sniff out everyone's motives as to who may have potentially stolen the Dagger of Amon and why. But as you do, similar to the Colonel's bequest, bodies start dropping, so now it's no longer about theft. Now there's also murder. And you have to basically pay attention as to who is who. One of the things I did not like about this game, that I did like about the Colonel's bequest, is when someone spoke, it kind of gave their nameplate and stuff like that, or it'd say, Rudy says, whatever. In this game, it introduces about 8 or 9 characters, and unless you catch their name and write it down fairly quickly, they don't really go over who it is again. It never says like that's the character's name who's speaking. So there is, for example, a guy at the laundromat who's, in terms of the story, what happened at the museum, not super significant, but his name is Lofat. And what happens is, like, as he's talking, there's nowhere in the thing that says it's his name. And when you get towards the end of this game, you are questioned as to who did what their motives were. So I happen to have like a notebook next to me, and I was writing stuff down. But if you didn't know to write everyone's name down like that, when you got to the end, you're going to get the bad ending, which I purposely did. We'll get there at the end, where you'll see what happens if you guess incorrectly. And then I did a little edit where she screams, and then you actually see the proper good ending. It's really easy to get the bad ending if you don't have people's names and their motives down correctly. And one of the other things I was not a really big fan of that I thought felt very clunky is the dialogue. So in order to ask anyone about someone else or an item or anything like that, you basically had to do the question mark, and then it goes into your notebook, and then you can click through your notebook and do things to talk to people. But for example, if you're asking about people, eventually your people page goes to page 2. And when the notebook first opens, it opens to a blank page. So then you still have to click people, and then you have to click the next page, and then you have to click again. And then if you're going down this list of people that you're trying to talk about, when you question them again and go back in, it again starts at that blank page. So you have to click people again, then you have to click next. One of the things I could have done that I thought they did really well was if you've played the first Gabriel Knight, the two faces were just there as if they're looking at each other with the options of dialogue right there. So, it could be like people, then you click it and it expands people, and you can talk about it, items, and it expands that, which would have been great. Or another thing that they could have done that I thought would have made this much, much smoother is, if you're talking to someone and you question them and then you ask them another question, your notebook opens to the page you last left at. So you're not always having to click all these extra clicks just to get dialogue. Because, like I said, this game introduces about 8 or 9 people that are very significant. And you have to, well, it's probably more than that, because then there's also the sheriff, and then Low-Fat, and a number of other people. So it introduces a wide variety of people. And it, especially once you get to the museum, which is in Act 2, it gets extremely monotonous, for lack of a better word, to make this be effective, to really find out as much information as you can about people. So that is one of the things that I was not a fan of in the way they handled how dialogue works in this game. So this is an example of, I'm literally going through every single option, just talking to Rhubarb. And if you watch the playthrough, I am literally here for about 5 minutes, just going off of the information I have now. So this is just information that he's talked about and that the boss has talked about, the boss at the newspaper, which is where you work. So you can see like there's 2 pages of people, there's like items there and stuff like that. Now take that and multiply it by 9 or 10 times, and you're spending literally an hour and a half just talking to people. Because as you're talking to them and doing things, you start learning more information. So you get more tidbits and more people to talk about, more items to talk about and stuff like that. And this one took me a second too. Like in Leash Suit Larry, you would do the like the mouth icon or the talk icon on the taxi to indicate like you're whistling for a taxi. And so I was doing that and I was like, why can't I get the taxi to work? Apparently you have to click the hand thing on the taxi. So here we are, we're at the police station. There's what appears to be a homeless guy beneath a newspaper. You can look at him and talk to him. What you really need to do though, is actually you need to click the hand and click on him. Because from what I remembered, you click on him, whatever, and he snores and says like something like, leave me alone. You go into the police station, when you come back out, only the newspaper that he's using to cover his face is there, and you need that newspaper. So it took me a while to remember that, and so you'll see me walk out of the police station, and he's still there, laying there. If you look at these post-its, they have some post-its about like what's going on, about crime, and some of it is actually relevant to what was supposedly happening back in that day, if I remember correctly. So it's kind of cool that they used real life to kind of place this game. And this dude at the counter, he talks about basically how he's been overworked. He hasn't even had a lunch yet. He's just really hungry. Doesn't really have time to talk to you. So that's a clue that he hasn't had lunch yet. And this is Detective O'Reilly, who will play a major part in the game. Not just because he is a detective, but you have to pick up on a lot of clues throughout the game to understand his role in the game. I will also say that sometimes some of the things you learn are random. If you watch the long play, there's something that comes up about a vat and a specific number of the vat, about something being stuck. And I had heard it when I walked into a specific room and heard it, and I was like, okay, cool, now I know which vat to go to. But when I did something wrong and I restored it and went back, and I went back into the room where normally the recording comes in about the vat, it didn't come in. Instead, a character come in and said, hey, what are you doing in my office? And kicked me out. And so I kept coming back in and out trying to get that recording to play, and it didn't. So otherwise, I would have, with the restore point, which was previous before learning what vat it is, would have essentially had to keep trying to find where this thing is at. And logically, why would you do it if you don't hear that recording? These kids here, outside of low-fats, they're burning ants for fun. They have a magnifying glass, which, any good detective, which Laura Bow tries to be, as well as a reporter, they should have a magnifying glass. So now it's a matter of talking to these kids, seeing what's up with them, seeing what they want to do, and finding out some of their hobbies, which one of them includes playing baseball and smashing windows. And earlier, in the trash can of Laura Bow's desk, you know what we found? A baseball. Now, granted, I go through and ask these kids a couple of questions because they're outside low fat, so I thought, hey, maybe what do they know about low fats? So I ask about baseball, and then they start talking about baseball. And then when you ask them about the burglary, they're like, what do you think I am, a stooge? There was also a issue that I'd never seen in any of the other games, in the non-talkie version of Laura Bow, where you'll see it in this game because it frustrated me, but a error pops up that says, oops, you did something we didn't expect, but you can keep playing the game, which is actually incorrect because that error pops up when you try to restore. And what happened is I had to go back several times and restore and replay some portions of the game. And so this was another thing that I thought was weird. I was trying to walk right in, but you have to click the hand. Anyway, this oops error, what that resulted in is I would go into different rooms, not having done anything new, but saved in multiple rooms because I didn't know what was triggering that error. So that way I'd have like three, low fats A, low fats B, low fats C. That way, if I was outside low fats, inside low fats, about to go to low fats, I'd have all these save games that were the same area, or the same progress, I should say, but in different areas, just in case one of those gave me this oops error. And this is the progress of going through low fats and talking to him. Eventually what you find out is if someone hasn't reclaimed a dress in 2 years, he will give it away. So the event at the museum requires you to have fancy clothes, but if you recall, Laura Bow's luggage was stolen, so she only has what she's wearing, but it actually looks kind of fancy, so. But who am I to judge? There will be someone's name that you pick up on, and when you come and talk to Low-Fat about the individual, you'll learn that him and this individual female have a working relationship where she doesn't pay for her laundry, but she offers a service in exchange. And this same individual will be one of the main characters that you will see at the museum, who you quickly learn, shall we say, services several people? So you can see that already the people have reached page 2. And when you go to Yvette, that's where he talks about the special arrangement he has with Yvette. And those pauses like that, oftentimes I'm writing notes like low fat equal relationship with Yvette, because I couldn't remember what was relevant and what wasn't when I was replaying this game. It's probably been about 8, 9 years since I played this game last. I usually play games that are fairly easy to get through if I'm looking for a quick Sierra game. Like Please Shoot Larry I've memorized. Like the Police Quest, Laura Bow, those are a little too serious, so typically if I'm just looking for a fast game to play, it's going to be either one of the Please Shoot Larry games or like Space Quest. And you'll notice one thing I'll say is like when you ride the taxi driver, you can see that this dude's taxi is super clean. And then he'll say, "What can I do to motivate you?" or whatever, something like that. And you have to click on the thing. And he'll take you. Eventually a different taxi comes in and it's full of trash. And you're going to have to move the trash around to find a specific item. We'll talk about it when we get there. With this guy, so when I play the game, when I play these games, I do it without walkthroughs because I just try to see what I can remember, where I fumble, where I might even die a bunch of times. And what I always do afterwards is I look at a walkthrough afterwards and see what I've missed, what I could have done different. And apparently asking him, he's also relevant to the game, especially in terms of the relationship with Laura Bow, who finds him attractive, and him finding her attractive. His name is Steve Dorian. What was I saying? Totally forgot. Oh, that's right. So I don't look at walkthroughs when I play the game originally, but then after I finish it, I look at walkthroughs to see what I could have done. Whoop, there's that oops error that I was talking about. So now I have to go back and repeat some of what I just did. Anyway, why does anyone listen to my commentaries? I am like so sidetracked everywhere. When you talk to Steve Dorian, one of the last things you're supposed to say or ask him about is the museum. Because once you ask him about the museum, he goes, "Hey, I gotta go." So you can technically find out more information from Steve if you ask all the other questions and save the museum question for last, because at that point, that's when he'll depart. So you can see fundraiser tonight, formal attire required, which means Laura Bow still needs to get that dress. And so the flower shop acts as a speakeasy. I'm sure there's speakeasies in New York, as they're probably everywhere. But the first time I went to a speakeasy, I would have thought it would have been New Orleans. But it was actually in Ireland. You literally go down a flight of stairs, and there's a small little button on the wall. And you press it, and no joke, the little slide door thing moves aside, and you're able to enter the speakeasy, which is really, really cool. So you can see I've touched the guy, he's rolled over now, so now this guy can't talk, the office is locked. So now when you come out, he's left, and if you look at the paper, free sandwich. So now we know that one deputy guy clearly said, "Can't really talk, got a lot of work to do, and I'm really hungry." So what we're going to do is well, first apparently I asked this guy about the sandwich, but we have to find where to get this sandwich at. So let's start from the beginning. We know it's not the police station because we were just there. Head to the Tribune, and sure enough, a dude selling sandwiches who wasn't there before. So it's kind of a clue that you probably triggered what needs to happen. So you talk to him, show him this thing, and he kind of curses because it is a thing for a free sandwich that has no expiration date. So he's like, I'm always giving away a free sandwich. Or whatever that accent is. So now that we have a few more names that we got from Low Fat and stuff like that, come over here, talk to Rhubarb about some of the new people that we found out about to get any more information. And you learn that even he and Yvette exchanged services. I do think it's funny that the press pass is actually a press, as in laundry press. So we're going to talk to him. He's going to be grumpy still, but we have what it takes to make him happy. We're going to give him a sandwich. So now you can ask him a number of things, but the big thing you want to ask him about is the speakeasy. But I'm going to go down this list, but the primary thing that you really want to know is the speakeasy, because he'll give you the password saying, I'm not saying there is a speakeasy, but if there was one, I'd probably use the password like charlatan or whatever. I think he's probably the one guy, if I remember correctly, who actually does not know of it. So you'll notice just now, it flew by really quick because of how quick it is, but Charleston is in there now. And if you ask him about Charleston, he'll say, that's the thing I told you about that I told you isn't a thing that I told you that I would use for a password or something along those lines. It's pretty funny. And the reference of Ken sent me, hopefully most people get it, because the Charleston password, the password in Leech Suit Larry 1 is Ken sent me. So now that I know the password, I'm going to go ahead and head to the speakeasy and actually tell him, hey, this time I actually really do know the password. And so here we are. We are now inside. Move this fan a little bit. We're now inside the speakeasy. The only two things of significance is there is Ziggy, who is down in the bottom right-hand corner. The bald dude puffing away on a cigarette, and then there's the door to the north. I did stop here because there is actually a song that actually gets sung here about dating an archaeologist, which is kind of funny because the whole theme of the Egyptian theme throughout the game. But yeah, the other people, not worth talking to, just Ziggy, and then going through that door. And the door, even at this point, because we don't have the dress, is not super important, but there is someone, when you go through the door, that you can talk to and get a little more information on. When you talk to Ziggy, you'll see he's very, very, very twitchy. And then when you ask about one of the doctors, he'll talk about how it'll be that other person that he mentions. How there's 2 riddles you have to answer, and that will also come up in Laura Bow's own quest throughout this. In order to succeed, there are 2 riddles you have to be able to answer, and not only answer, you have to spell the answer using hieroglyphics that you will actually see in the game. So if you did not take the time to make note of those, or if you only got half of it, you will not be able to answer the riddle and you will die. And there were also times in the talkie version where he would talk, and then there'd be a huge pause with the game. And there's that person that I was talking about where he talks about how they have a weird sense of humor, and they ask him stupid riddles that are like 2-part riddles. And then here, as I said, there's a a messy cab, and you have to move that stuff to the right, and you'll find an item. Now, normally cabbies, when you take them, they're very useful. Like you can ask a cabbie for all kinds of information because they drive around and they do all this stuff. In this game, literally all the cabbies are like, I just live in my cab. I don't know anything else about the speakeasy. I just know where it's at. So in that cab, we got a laundry claiming ticket, which we'll use at low fats. And this is a woman who is waiting for another woman who, with the way she talks to Laura, you kind of get the impression she enjoys the company of women specifically. And I should note, she is voiced, if I remember correctly, by someone everyone probably knows. Jane, who made the Gabriel Knight series. It's one of the great things that must have been awesome at working Sierra, because not only for those who are game designers, like Jane, Allo, Scott Murphy, all of them. Not only that they get to design these incredible games that to this day are still very significant and important to me, but they also get to voice parts when they had the technology to be able to voice these games. So, Jane Jensen, who made Gabriel Knight, was now just voicing this in Laura Bow. Now, it was a matter of saving money because you're using your own employees to voice these games rather than hiring professional individuals to do it. But still, what a great opportunity to not only develop and create games, but also to be able to voice games. Alright, so that free pass, he goes, oh yeah, I remember that, and he gives you a dress. Once you have the dress, we will head back to the speakeasy and change there. Which, to me, why wouldn't Laura just go back to her apartment? She has to be living somewhere and change, but, there's that. And each time, you'll see it, each time I got into the dirty cab, because I couldn't remember if there was going to be other stuff to find in the dirty cab or whatever. So every time I'm in there, I kept moving the stuff around to make sure I'm not missing something else. But at the time, I couldn't figure out, now that I have the dress, where do I go to change the dress? And it wasn't until later I thought about the curtain I don't know what they're called, but the stand-up curtain thing where you stand behind it to change clothes. But while I'm here, take advantage of it, ask about a few new names, bring up Yvette again just to see his reaction. This is something I'll talk about while we're in some room for a filler. In certain areas, so you have to look both ways before you cross the street and stuff like that, but in certain areas you actually do not even have to call the taxi. Some of the areas are actually connected, and I didn't know this. I don't think I've ever known this until after I finished my playthrough. Like I said, after I finished the playthrough, I looked at walkthroughs to see what I could have done different, what I might have missed. One of those things is some of the areas are next to each other, like the police station might be next to the speakeasy, for example, and stuff like that. So you don't actually have to hail a taxi every time, and it's not a big deal because the taxi, unlike Lucy Larry, as long as you show your press pass, it's free. But that I did not know all this time that some of those areas were actually connected. So now we're into Act 2 because Laura Bow got her dress. She changed at the speakeasy. We meet this interesting individual who is very strict. He is the guard, and he has some weird ideas that you'll find out. Now here are all the people that are in the book, that are mentioned in the book, and not all of them. So some of the people in the background are not people that you can talk to. Just kind of going through to see where everyone's standing, but you can tell the ones that kind of look like they might be important, not just people taking pictures in front of stuff. This was something that I thought was weird. Every time I tried to talk, you can see that Laura Bow has moved like directly, technically in this case, she's directly right behind her. So it got difficult sometimes to click on her, and they would just say, Laura Bow, why are you talking to yourself, or something like that. So, and that happens a few times, speaking with a few people. But this is the part that I said gets really monotonous in terms of trying to get information. Because like I said, with the people page, we're already on like an extra page. We're on technically a 4th page. And it always opens up to that blank page first. You gotta click the people tab, blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, throughout this portion, you'll notice that I begin collecting information about everyone. And you'll notice that some people will say, oh yeah, no, I don't know him. And then when you go talk to that other person, they'll go, oh yeah, you know, she's like a really nice woman, blah, 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 blah. And you go back and talk to her again, she goes, oh, you know, I don't know him. I already told you that. And then Laura Bow will say, well, that's weird because he said he knows you. Oh, well, maybe I met him. I just don't remember. So there's little clues like that that you have to listen for to see who might be doing what and who's lying about what. So when you play this game, definitely have a notepad down and remember who is who. So this guy is pretty snide and stuff like that. Oh, no, this is the normal guy. There's someone else who's snarky. And right there is, to the left in this group, kind of like with the long tail and pulled, that is Ziggy. So who you met at the speakeasy, he's here. The blonde standing between them all, that's Yvette. So naturally, men flocking around an attractive blonde woman, or an attractive woman, doesn't even have to be blonde. Men are like pack animals, I swear. And that was from a restore, so literally have to go back and redo some of that dialogue. So this is Yvette, and like I said, you will find that she actually kind of knows quite a few people, and she can share quite a bit of information. So definitely worth talking to, as well as Ziggy, who I talked to previous to this. Ziggy being kind of a criminal type, has a little bit of information on everyone and how he reacts to certain questions. Like I said, the first part, when you first arrive in Act 2, it is a little bit on the monotonous side, getting all this information from everyone. But you kind of have to do it to kind of figure out motives and who knows who might be lying about who might be lying about what. One thing you'll want to pick up after you kind of finish talking to that group of people is a cup, or a glass, I should say. It's actually a glass. And what you're going to use that glass for, you'll see later on, is you can use it to listen to conversations that are happening on the other side of a door. And by doing that, you'll find more information. Some of it extremely critical, especially when they talk to Detective O'Reilly. There will be a part where he says something about someone accuses him of being too far into the grapes, and a clue later on you'll find is something that has to do with grapes. And there is a portion similar to that, overhearing conversations with the glass, that here in Act 2, before everything starts going crazy, you will, and I'm not sure if you have to talk to so many people to trigger it, or if what it is that triggers it, but eventually you'll start to be able to walk behind like a group of people, and you'll start to basically eavesdrop on their conversation and actually learn a little bit of more information. I don't know if there's certain people that you're supposed to listen to get specific information, like if you listen to this group you miss out on this, but I did eavesdrop on quite a few people in this room, which you'll see, to get more information. And you'll find out from him, similar to the intro, that he wants the Dagger of Amon Ra back in Egypt where it properly belongs. And he even kind of lays down a very thinly veiled threat of getting it back by any means possible, which, when things start going wrong, certainly makes it look like he is a good candidate. But then you talk to this woman, and she's into scars and broken bones and, mainly scars. Like, she wants to see everyone's scars. Like, do you have any scars? Show me your scars. So you already kind of figure she's a little off her rocker also. This is Detective O'Reilly, who we met at the police station, so even he is here. Might want to take note of everything about Detective O'Reilly, like how he has red hair, who he knows, what he thinks. Just saying. That might be a spoiler. when things start going south, he and Wolfheim or whatever, they will show up frequently. I think almost every single time a body turns up. I think the only time they don't show up together is when you initially find Ziggy's body. We'll get to that soon enough, since Ziggy's one of the first ones to perish. So you can see I saved 3 times and not really had done anything because of that oops error. And in this cabinet, this took me a while to even remember. There's a dagger that says made in Pittsburgh, but there's a specific dagger you need to see. One of them that doesn't say made in Pittsburgh or whatever. And you literally have to inch your way across that screen to find which one. I feel like this was a pixel hunt. It's not super critical, I don't think. Or it might be. It might be what triggers the eavesdropping. Because something happens when you do find it to get you kicked out. So you'll see this one does not say made in Pittsburgh. And yeah, see, it is critical. So the time moves forward. And he says, you know what, the gift shop is closed, you shouldn't be in here, get out. And now you can begin eavesdropping. And this is that guy talking about how he found the Dagger of Amon, how it is like the best thing since sliced bread. And that is not a pun on the fact that it is a dagger that can cut bread, but he really thinks very highly of himself. And as you can see, Yvette has a lot of attention on her. And now Yvette's gone, and you can overhear these guys talking. And you can see the people at the table have changed again, so... Oh, and then there's Steve Dorian, who's like, hey, want to go for a walk with me outside? Sure. And he says he's basically there only to see you. Like, he heard that you were coming, so he just wanted to come out here, and they do this whole romantic moment. As I alluded to earlier, when we saw Steve Dorian on the dock, he does play a very big role in the game. But really, just now setting up stuff, and then at the end, he plays a big role. Especially in terms of Laura Bow, who finds him attractive. Does that really happen anymore, where you meet someone, barely talk to them, and you just kiss outside? Over here we see Yvette is speaking with our good friend the deputy, and again the crowd has changed. Every time Laura is seen, basically that's how they end the conversation, and the group tends to change, so if you just move a little bit, you'll actually hear a new conversation. And essentially you just keep going through here, eavesdropping on people, gaining more information. But like I said, probably should write down kind of what you hear, at least allude to what you hear, because you'll probably need it later. And then, eventually, the time will move forward. So that conversation with Ziggy and that woman will come into play later, for sure. Because as I already alluded to, Ziggy meets an unfortunate end fairly early in the game. So it's interesting that O'Reilly and Ziggy are talking, considering Ziggy's past and Detective O'Reilly. And these two over here talking about the Egyptians and getting the dagger back any means possible. And that can be a good sign when Steve Dorian is talking to Yvette, who mentions how strong he looks and stuff like that, and Laura Bow is interested in Steve. So, what could that mean? Well, most of the eavesdropping is now over. So I'm just going around, saving different spots. Checking the dagger thing again. Checking out the museum, seems to be open now. We can look around. Checking out some fossils. And he'll tell you to get out. Paint is still drying. Can't go in there. Like I said, get out. Paint is still drying. So this room will be very different in a moment. Press the T-Rex, press the button. Pressing that button, very important. Not at the moment, but it will be important later. The fact that you can press the button and the T-Rex moves his mouth is critical for the end of the game. Anyone else think of Toy Story when they see this dinosaur? The T-Rex, I mean, specifically. Now this one is kind of hard to see, like you're looking at the Brontosaurus, whatever, the Thunder Lizard. Right below it is a bone. Kind of almost blends in with the watery painting, but you have to take the bone. You actually just look at it and then it takes it and says, oh, it must be for an example. Like, who just hands out fossil bones? So that's really odd that they would just be like, yeah, no. Whoever looks at it first can take this fossil bone. This room has a hidden passage. I remember this one just by fluke because of the Laura Bow, the Colonel's request. That tarp, you can actually hide in it if you click on it. And the armor will be vital later. Hiding in the tarp will be useful, like how I just did it. Later on, someone will enter the room, and you need to be hidden in order to get the benefit of them walking into that room. Oh, I should say, this is something else I discovered after looking at the walkthrough after playing the game, because I've said it before, just in case you skipped to this portion of the video and didn't hear it earlier. When I replay these games again, I don't use a walkthrough. I just play to try to play and remember everything that I can, or just rediscover the game as if it's the first time in the event that I haven't played this in a long time or whatever. But something I've never known, and I've had Dagger of Amon since it first came out, and I've played it a number of times since then. Last time I probably played it was like 8 or 9 years ago. Something I've never ever known. Keep in mind this game came out 1992, and here we are in 2022, and I've played it numerous times here and there, is the fact that some of these rooms actually have secret passages. Similar to in the Colonel's Bequest, there were secret passages to get around. This game also has secret passages. I've read about it in the walkthrough after I finished my own walkthrough, but nowhere in this walkthrough do I use those secret passages except for one that goes down, and that one is mandatory in order to finish the game. But the other one are just kind of like beneficial to be able to get around very easily and very quickly. But I actually, just having read that there are secret passages, I actually don't know where they are because I've not replayed after that. I should restore the game and see where some of these secret passages are and record it and just post that as like a here's where you can find the damn secret passages. For this, what I'm looking at now, you have to look at that in order to be able to beat the game later, because you'll find it puts the alphabet there. And this is only half the alphabet, you'll have to find the other half later. Inside, right outside, there was an Ankh, then there was an Ankh on the floor, then blood. You open it up, and one of the doctors is there, and there is a dagger shoved into his chest. Now, with every single body, there's usually something to find. You just have to typically click on the right area, like he had a note in his pocket. And it's a fake Dagger of Amon. It's not the real one. That'd be too easy to have found the dagger that quickly. But there are things to find pretty much on everyone to indicate how they died. Like, obviously he died with a dagger, but other small clues that you usually need to pick up. And so now the time has moved forward, and he has shown up to say, why are you screaming? What's the deal? And why is there a dead body there? And now begins Act 3, called On the Cutting Edge. And it's called that because they pretty much close down the museum, don't let anyone come or go, whatever. Most people should be out of the museum while they commence their investigation. But you'll start finding that there are people still in the museum, and things start going poorly. And Laura Bow stays because she is part of the newspaper, and she's now involved in this murder, and she wants to get to the bottom line, and she has the right to do so. So, begrudgingly, O'Reilly and Wolfheim, or whatever, let Laura stay. I will say one thing you may have noticed, either just now or when you watch the long playthrough, that's 9 hours long. It looked like my save games, there was like 10 of them in there, and then when I went to Act 3, suddenly there was nothing. So what I do is I go into the game folder and I create a folder for each act. So once I finish Act 1, I moved all the Act 1 save games in there. Once I finish Act 2, I move all the Act 2 save games in there. So now we're on Act 3, so when you look, it's only going to have a few save games, because now it's just Act 3 save games that you're going to see in there. So one thing to note, in the photo in the room that you're standing in, there is a golden glint on that big picture right there. That's off to the right. You can kind of see it there. Clicking on it is extremely difficult. You do not actually want to click exactly on the glitter of the glint. You want to actually click like a hair beneath it. And there is something about this game. There is something later on where you're going to use an intercom and you can press buttons on the intercom to try to overhear things. And you have to like literally press just off of the button to actually press the button. And it's similar with that. So when you go in there and you look and you use your magnifying glass, you see a skeleton key shoved in this tiny hole. So you need a way to get those out. There are 2 items you can use to get that out, and we have neither of those items yet. So this was muscle memory. I don't do it yet, but I remember that one of these heads opened up a secret passage. And I thought it was just looking at it and it'd say something specific, but here it says, hey, you hear something coming from beyond the door. So you use the cup, don't open the door, use the cup on the door, and you can overhear this conversation between Yvette and the woman who loves scars. I can't remember her name. Anyway, what I was saying is these 4 statues and then the thinker in the middle. I remember one of them opens up a secret passage, but I thought you had to look at it and it says something specific about like, oh, this is unusual. It's like the eyes are missing or something like that. It took me a while to remember how to open the secret passage. It's like much later when I remember to figure it out, because someone walks by and you hear the sound of the secret passage open, even though the statue in question that opens it isn't changed. Spoiler alert, it's the thinker. And you can see it right there. There's the door. You can see a door line right there. So you go in here and you talk to her, and you'll notice on that wall, first you'll notice she has a very bizarre office, and she makes note about her snake that's in that cage. Do not mess with the snake. You're going to want to move that tarp, look at the rock with a magnifying glass, and what you get is the other half of the alphabet. So again, you need to do both of those. You can decipher, sorry, I keep this pause for a while because I actually wrote it down and I thought this is stupid and I screenshotted it because that was much easier to do. You can actually decipher that code and it'll give you a small clue. Do not go near the snake though, because the snake is dangerous. And see, she goes around that backside and there was a sound, but where'd she go? So as long as you don't hear anyone making sounds on the other side of the door, it's typically safe to go into the room. So if you go in there, you'll find like a little note or charcoal paper from Yvette, which you'll need later to decipher a note that's been written on a notepad. But the main page has been ripped off, so all you have is the impression of what's been written down. So you use the charcoal paper to decipher what it says. And you also take a look at, what are those things called? The paper cutter things that's on that table. Nothing on it right now. Something will be on it later. And take note of a porcupine on this guy's table. Like, who has a porcupine on their table? I don't know. But while you're in here, you can overhear sounds coming from the door behind you. So Yvette and one of the Egyptians, who to me seems as if he enjoys the company of men versus women, is in the room with Yvette. Or in Yvette's office, I should say, because that's her office that she's in currently. And this is the, I guess, the owner of the museum. So the clock will play a part later. This note plays a part. This phone book plays a big part because the name you want to look for is the abbreviation of B, last name safe. So be safe, which sounds like more of a warning, but if you click that picture, there is a lock there. And to get the combination, if you look at be safe's quote unquote number, it's actually the combination to that lock. And it took me a little bit to remember that's where it was at. So one of the things that I thought was frustrating is there is a piece of charcoal that's on the ground that I remembered, but you literally have to pixel hunt for it. It's not easily there. So you take the charcoal, rub it on the note. I thought it was a charcoal paper, but that's right. You take the charcoal, rub it on the note, and you get what the note actually says. And so you can turn that light on or off. One of the important things is you'll need that light bulb later. So it's actually good to turn it off so that it's not hot. So once again, stepping out and coming back, now our good buddy detective is with Yvette in her office, wondering what services are being rendered for her time. There goes Yvette, and you can try to catch her, ask a few questions, but she's pretty much gone. It's always good to go into each room because this is what happens. Every time you go into a room, you may overhear someone on the other side speaking. And once again, always using the glass to make sure you don't enter the door. Just use the glass against the door to hear what they're saying. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where you can technically use this intercom to try to overhear conversations. But if you watch the long playthrough, you can literally see that I'm struggling to click these buttons. And the trick to do it, just to explain, is where the button is, there is a dark shadow just beneath it. You want to click not on the button itself, but technically on that darker shadow, and that'll usually line up with what you need to press to hear stuff on the intercom. And I thought this was weird, like in order to get the light bulb, you would think you just click the hand to get it, but no, that just turns the light back on. And there are times, I should point this out since I just did it at that door. There are times where conversations are happening behind a door and it does not warn you that there are people at the door. So you'll see, especially if you watch the long playthrough, that every door I go to, or every door I walk by, and there's where I figured out it was that statue. Every door I walk by, I put the glass there just in case, because it happens primarily down below. So once you go down below here, you'll start to hear conversations that are happening, but you don't get the warning. You just have to be able to be smart enough to put the glass up against the door and be like, oh, something's happening. So you can see I opened up that secret door with pushing the head of the thinker. That opens up that side door, but you have to change the light, because as soon as you open that door, the light goes out. And if you attempt to go down the stairs without a light source, just like King's Quest, you will fall to your death. And if you touch any of the paintings, it'll note that some of the paintings, the paint is still wet, which is very important. getting the light bulb to work there was also a pain. You'd think you just click the light bulb on the light. No. And this, so this is weird. So it says how you can vaguely see something on the other side, which is a lantern. And this is one of those times where I was stupid. And I was like, oh, cheese. Get gunned down. So clearly not looking at a walkthrough because I wasn't smart enough to know. Do not pick up the cheese. So with this lantern thing, what you're supposed to do is you use, you may be able to use other objects, but eventually I use the dinosaur bone to smash that glass. And the first time I did it, I ended up getting caught by Wolfheim, or whatever his name is. And, oh, so this is where the intercom is picking up the conversation. Anyway, Wolfheim comes and says, hey, what have you done? Why have you broken the glass? That's a horrible version of his accent. And so you end up leaving because he tells you to leave. And when you come back, not only is all the glass on the floor cleaned up, but the glass has been replaced. And in the height of a murder investigation, how did they have someone come along and fix the glass? So anyway, if you come over here down to where the vats are, it's kind of funny. There are vats in here that have a unicorn. King Graham is in a vat, whatever. If you listen at the door over here to the right, you'll hear Yvette and Ernie. I think his name is Ernie. Anyway, he does what they call fencing. And back then, fencing was known as basically taking goods and smuggling it back out. And being a fence, you're basically the middleman who can get this smuggled out for you. But it turns out the fencing he actually does is actual real fencing. He builds a fence. Because you'll find out at the very end from the coroner when he's talking about various people that he was a fencer and built him a very nice fence. So this is one of the vats where you look and it's a unicorn and stuff like that. There is a specific vat you have to go to. And you'll know because a recording will tell you where to go. And this is where I smash the glass and he comes in and says, you have to leave. Which, okay, go right back down. And what? The glass is fixed and it's already cleaned up. So I did it again, managed to get it. And there's the ferret that crazy Scar woman is looking for. As a side note, I did not know this. But I read it in the walkthrough. So you use the bone to trip the thing and get the cheese, but if you touch any of the weapons, it'll also electrocute you. And you kind of get a hint when you overhear a conversation where the Scar chick says, don't touch any of the weapons, it'll electrocute you. So you don't hear anything, but when you come in, it's like, oh my. Make sure the kids aren't there when you walk in on this one. And then I recall that there was a specific book here that you have to find. And it's so funny because it's literally that one I just passed. The way to note it is that it's backwards so that the pages are facing outward. So instead of it being like an orange spine or a blue spine or whatever, it's got white. And I think it was like literally the third click I did, and it took me forever to try to find it again because I was clicking too fast, thinking that, like the book would be pulled out. I just remember that there was a book here that you had to find. And there it is. So if you pull out the book, there's like a little garter belt thing, which is a hint that undoubtedly someone by the name of Yvette has been around, and sure enough, you find a clue about Yvette. So our sassy lady seems to be quite busy. So now we've found a decapitated body. But from the long tail in the back, you can kind of guess this is Ziggy. He's met his pterodactyl ending. Terror. Get it? Terror. Like frightening. These are the jokes, people. These are the jokes. Those wires that you can see will be important later. We don't have what it takes to get those wires, though. But we'll come back to that. And it's so odd. You find the body. Yvette is just standing there. Like, this is the one time that Detective O'Reilly doesn't show up. Neither does Wolfheim, or whatever. But, like, how is she not freaking out? Like, she's literally standing next to Ziggy, who is dead and decapitated, and she doesn't really even have anything to add. Like, it's her being there, standing there. I don't know if it's like a bug, if she's supposed to be standing next to Ziggy, if that's like an indication, because, spoiler alert, she's not the one who killed Ziggy. And the door in that room remains locked the whole time. Really does not come into play until the very end, when Laura Bow finds herself being chased by a killer. You'll see that that opens, and that will be important when you're being chased by the killer. And you'll notice there's no chair next to that door. Later on there will be oh, there's someone's face. You just found another body. Alright, we just saw someone heading up. And that was the thing. So when we were scratching the paper, there was a note about certain people meeting at certain times. So you can go to certain rooms to try to catch them and see if they have any additional information. And then this is a thing where it shows a bunch of faces or heads that are supposed to be representative of each region. If you look all the way over there towards like Japan, that side of the continent, you'll notice that there's a face that looks kind of gray, not really representing any form of Asian culture at all. There is still a head that we're looking for, so here's a spoiler alert. Put in the comments, oh, never mind, it's Ziggy's head. That's right, we just found Ziggy's decapitated head. And now, ironically, when we screamed and saw his body and Yvette was standing next to it, no one came. But now, sure enough, Detective and Wolfheim show up to say, what have you done? Whatever. Maybe ask Yvette, who is standing next to the decapitated body, is who you should probably really be talking to in this normal situation, but whatever. She says, you know what? I didn't do it. Found his body decapitated and came here and just found his head. And they're like, well, you always seem to be at the scene when someone dies. We're going to keep an eye on you, doll. What's disturbing is during the murder investigation, they don't remove Ziggy's head. They just leave it plastered on the wall. You'd think they'd want to take it down and, you know, use it for evidence. Or maybe tape off, like, Ziggy's body and wonder why Yvette is still standing next to Iggy's body. This is one of those times where there was no indication that anything was being said on the other side of the door. I just happened to put the glass on the door and then overheard conversation. And that's why it just became a habit of every room I walk by, even if it doesn't say you hear muffles on the other side of the door, I just did it anyway, just to see if it picked up anything. So you'll see, like in that room, I put the glass first. Now you notice that there's red stuff on the paper cutter. And it says it could be paint, or it could be ink, or it could be ... And if you go into the next room, sure enough, someone else is dead. His body shoved through a porcupine. The initials CP written in blood. If you look at the time, you'll see that the clock is broken, and guess about what time he met his end. Because during the struggle, he would have broke the clock and stopped the clock at that time. So CP, what does that stand for? You would think it'd be someone's name, but actually what it stands for is a book called Crime and Punishment. Because in the book of Crime and Punishment, you're about to find some police records. And when you open it, it's a rap sheet of, I can't remember his name, starts with a W. Not waiter, but something like that. But essentially, it's a long rap sheet about his massive list of crimes. And turns out he's not, who is in the museum is not who they truly appear to be. There is someone impersonating someone. And that'll be one of the questions you get asked during the investigation at the end. Again, this gentleman, who I feel like enjoys the company of men versus women, finds himself with a woman who's asking about his scars or tattoos or anything that's like exotic like that. And he does have one. It's on his foot, I believe it was located. So he actually shows it to her. One of the weird things, though, is sometimes you'll hear... So there's the intercom that says, hey, something is in VAT 13. And so if you look at this book, there's a book about what each of the VATs has. And like I said, you'll find out that there's a VAT in there that has King Graham from King's Quest, and then there is also a unicorn from King's Quest 4. There is a snake boa thing, snake catcher thing, which you'll need. And then there is also the toolbox, which at first I couldn't get to open, but I knew there was something I need to get out of the toolbox. But first, let's head over to VAT 13, where that recording said something was up. And when you pull something up, it's nice, it's shiny, it's sharp. It's the frickin' Dagger of Amon. Game over, right? We found the Dagger of Amon. Everything's fine. Well, no. There's been a couple murders, so we still have to figure out what's going on with those murders. So when you open up the tool chest and look inside, the only thing in there are wire cutters. And since we saw wires on the pterodactyl, we can guess where we kind of need to go eventually. We need to make our way to the pterodactyl. Now, how did Wolf get from that room into this room faster than Laura did, that she can overhear a conversation between the two of them? And it's mostly about killing someone and finding the body first and weird, weird stuff. So there we go, we use the wire cutters to get some wire from the pterodactyl. And we officially now have what is needed to get the glinty thing from the picture. Now the problem is you can't get it if someone else is in the room. So if someone else is in the painting room, you should not try to get it, because you'll draw too much attention. So the two items you can use to get it is the wire cutters or the Dagger of Amon. Either one of them can get it out. Initially, I actually tried the wires thinking that you'd try to loop the wire through and pull it through, but that's not it. It seems weird that the wire cutters, which seem to be like they'd be wider, would be what you would use to get it out, but whatever. And when you hide, you'll see that she comes in, she's waiting, and this is where I messed up. Like, I was waiting to see if someone else would come out to see her, but it's Ziggy that she's there to meet, but Ziggy is, as we know, dead. So I had to restore back, which when I did this, and I go back, I don't hear the recording about VAT 13, because you can see I'm all the way back, and so I need to do some more dialogue again, since I restored too far back. But she was there to meet Ziggy, who she can't obviously meet because Ziggy's dead, so you're supposed to spring out and talk to her, because if you touch the paintings note that they're still wet. So there is a definitely theft of paintings happening. So I'm going to go through and redo some of this stuff. So at this point in the restore, I still have not heard the recording, unlike the previous portion before I restored, where it told me about VAT 13. So I technically know as a player because it happened previously, but when I restored, the restore is prior to that recording, but now Ernie is hanging out in this room where I hear it, and it only happens in Ernie's room, so I take this moment to actually question him about a couple of different things. So I came back here, just waiting for that recording to trigger so that I could officially once again hear it, because I assumed it would just trigger. But it actually, as I said earlier, it actually doesn't trigger again when I do the restore. And I'm not sure why that is. And he comes in. Lorbo, haven't I already told you once? Get out of my office and stay out. Stop messing around. Get kicked out. So anyway, figuring that it's not going to work, I'm just going to go to VAT 13, pull out, ta-da, the Dagger of Amon raw. And so here's where you hide, and she'll come back out. And as soon as the cursor lets you, you want to spring out and talk to her and ask her about those paintings and that deal that she has with Ziggy. She tries to deny it, but she has the easels, and you find out that Ziggy is the artist, and that she and him had a good deal going, that they were slowly swapping out the paintings, but then they would scratch up the paintings to make it seem like that was the bigger concern, is that these exotic paintings were scratched. so that if someone who was to examine them to see their authenticity wouldn't really be able to do it so easily because the paintings have been scratched up. And so it's at this point where she's vulnerable where you really want to ask her about the diary that you found in the locker. Sorry, not the locker, the safe. I never did finish my thought on that one room that we just left with the single door to the left. There's no chair there. During the chase scene, a chair will suddenly appear there. So now coming back with the glint, this time I use the pliers instead of the dagger. The first time I used the dagger. Now we're going to get the wires for the pterodactyl. Sorry, now I got him with the pliers. The skeleton key, that is. Weasel seems to be, or Ferret seems to be interested in that box and then leaves. I will say I meet a gruesome death because I'm missing a specific item and get eaten alive. So in that thing, there's a piece of meat, and that's what you're going to need for the crate that the skeleton key opens. As soon as you do, the bugs march off with the meat, and you see a corpse that has been eaten, bone picked clean. But you'll be able to find out who it is because inside there is a watch with some initials to kind of give you a clue as to who it might be. So you overhear now O'Reilly and Yvette. That is a conversation that is kind of important to listen to. There's definitely some tension there. And perhaps some history? So hiding in there once again, the chick with the scars and Wolfheim, or whatever his name is, they have a conversation about digging scars and their love, infatuation, whatever you want to call it, with one another. The things he would do for her and the things that she would do to him. So that open sarcophagus will be important later. See, there's no chair at that door, but there will be later. And now we just found Ernie has been killed. And as always, keep clicking on Ernie until you find something weird. And there you go. And the time has changed, which means things are going to be different in various rooms. And more than likely, someone is probably dead. By this point, I would do everything I could to get out of this museum. Because apparently, no one seems bothered by the fact that there is a decapitated body pierced by a pterodactyl and a head in the room. I mean, she just literally strolled by Ziggy's body. These two are very suspicious of you, since you keep showing up where dead people show up. Fime or whatever wants to essentially torture you to get information, but O'Reilly says that's not necessary. She's just trying to do her job as a news reporter, and apparently also solving murders. And as I said before, you can see that with the Act 4 save game, it's all cleared out because I've moved each act into their own folder. See those little bugs with the snake and then the ferret. We're now on Act 4, where more bodies are going to start dropping. Yvette talks about how exhausted she is. Well, I'm pretty sure she is exhausted from the servicing she's done with the various clientele, if you will. But she does talk about Ernie and how she loves him. He's the one that mattered the most. Walk outside, and Steve is talking to the scar chick, who's like, I'd like to see your scar sometime. And Steve and Laura talk, but it's not long before that conversation gets interrupted. And can you guess by who? Did you guess Yvette? Why, yes. Yes, it was Yvette. And there she is. Oh, Steve, your big hands could relax me so. Pardon me, Laura. I need to go tend to her. But Steve, don't. But I must. And if you listen, it talks about ooh la la, your hands are so strong on my body. And Laura will kick down the door. Or not kick down the door, but she'll open the door. Find out what's really going on. And it turns out he's just massaging her, but really. So the time has shifted again, which means something else has happened now. Like, how has no one figured out that every 15 minutes someone dies in this museum? Now Yvette's office looks like it has been kind of torn asunder here. Like, part of her dress is here. There's red hair follicles. There's a shoe. So something is definitely up. Like, her chair is knocked over, lamp is knocked over, typewriter is knocked over. Was it a thing of passion, or did something happen to Yvette? Well, you can guess something happened to Yvette, because every 15 minutes someone in this damn museum dies. Oh, look, and there's a new statue in the painting room. Let's take a close look at it. Oh, and there was a countess walking on the ceiling. And when you look closely and break it with the bone, oh look, it's Yvette, who actually looks much more attractive dead. And in her hands are a pair of glasses and some red hair follicles. So those are more clues. There's literally someone dead almost in every single room as you walk by. Like, he's dead over there, she's dead over there, he's dead in that room, and then there's a dead guy in the armor, there's blood on the floor now, Steve's boot, dude's head in this room. See if hiding does anything, it does not. Door's still locked. There was a guy dead in this room. Like, literally every room has someone dead except for, like, one or two. Like, at what point do you not just go, I need to get out of this museum and leave? This job is no longer worth the risk. And then we get a meanwhile. And it looks like the Scar chick has found the Countess. And she looks dead. She seems to be struggling first, and the Countess says, you know what, I'll go find some help. And she says, oh, you know what, the Countess is on my desk, and she's not looking well. She seems to be choking, or suffocating, or dying, and I'm going to go get help. So when you go in there, sure enough, oops, wrong room. Anyway, when you go in there, you'll see that the snake is out. So the bottle that you got earlier is of snake oil, but if you tried to lasso the snake before using the snake oil, you have to use it, I think 3 times at least. Depends on how you flick it, apparently. I didn't know that. I just kept trying to squirt it on the snake, and it traps him in a corner. Once he's trapped in the corner, you're able to use that snake thing and then put him into the cage. But before that, he'll bite you, and you have to look at her and see there's grapes on the ground. And the earlier conversation you heard, one of them talks about how O'Reilly, Detective O'Reilly, seems to have gone too much into his grapes. And then there's smelling salts that are on her person, which is odd. And if you check her ankle, you'll see that there is a snake bite, so she clearly died from the snake. And if you try to touch it, you'll die as well, so don't touch it. Act 5. Rex takes out the person. So at this point, now the murderer is chasing you. So there's a number of things you have to do. So for example, you're going to close that door, you're going to use wire to wrap it around. And it's very, like, when Act 5 starts, it's so dramatic. It's like suddenly there's no indication. The murderer just starts chasing you. And so when you do this, you have to kind of figure out which way to go, where, and what to do. And you can see that I paused the game there briefly to clear out the save game and put it into its own thing. So when you close that door, you need to slide the bar down, and you notice a chair's there, and you have to hit that thing. Now I hit it too many times in my eagerness. Like, I was actually freaked out with the killer chasing me, that I clicked it too many times, and it does not trick her. And so what happens is Laura doesn't trick the killer. I should say her. So Laura doesn't stay in the sarcophagus, which allows the killer to catch up. So if you look, click it once, now leave it, go in the sarcophagus, hide, killer looks, you're not there, you step out. And see, I wish I knew where the hidden things were. So now this door's open because the killer thinks maybe you've gotten here because you flipped the thing. So when you go in there, you can push this thing, move that, and then you go into an elevator which goes down, and you'll see me die, I think, like 3 or 4 times from this elevator on, just in the next room, because I knew that you had to do something to block the door, because the elevator starts going back up. It makes an indication that the killer is still after you. See? And so I was like, oh, there's like a body there. So try to grab that. No, that mummy doesn't work. So I grab that mummy and try to put him in the door, which doesn't work. I'm going to go ahead and die here in a moment because I can't figure out why putting the mummy in the door doesn't work. You would think just throwing the body on the floor so that the elevator can't hit the bottom would be enough. You find an exit that you use the snake lasso on the top of the sarcophagus to use, but if you don't properly block it, the killer will get you every time. Like that mummy over to the right, as far as I know, is a red herring. Like, he doesn't do anything. And see, you can't go through the exit without first blocking the door. And that's the key. Like, when the way it comes down the elevator, it looks like she just steps out, so it doesn't even look like there is a door. But sure enough, there's a freaking door, so you have to put the mummy against the door. And then you use the snake to open the door, and then you can go inside. Once you go inside, the cult of Amon-Ra is there, and she's like, oh, pardon me, I didn't mean to come through. And then you see the creatures with the bugs with the stake, and then the ferret going by. And they capture Laura, and she says, you know what, I promise not to say anything about your crazy cult that is here beneath this museum. Don't even know how you dug it up and have this huge thing of Amon-Ra that no one knows about under the museum. But that said, I promise I won't say anything. And they're like, yeah, no, we can't chance it. You're like a news reporter. And then she's like, wait, don't I have the right to prove my worth to Amon-Ra? And he says, well, actually you do. I'm going to go ahead and ask you a 2-part riddle. One of them is, what is a room that you are in and you exit and can't go back to, and another room that you are put in and cannot exit. And so the first one is the womb, and the second one is the tomb. And again, you have to use the hieroglyphics to prove it to the people of Amon-Ra, and they let you pass. He says, you know what, there's a secret passage over here. Go ahead and go. We'll let you slide. And it leads to the furnace room. So in the furnace room, if you look closely, you can see some legs draped over the coal. Now, you're supposed to basically try to wake up who ends up being Steve Dorian. But you can't even see his face. Like, it's even impossible to kind of tell where his face is on that. And that's what you have to basically touch first. You need to like rub the charcoal off his face and then use the smelling salts, which will wake him up. Once you do that, you'll click that symbol of Amon-Ra that's mysteriously here in this furnace that seems a little bit out of place. And Steve Dorian will go ahead and move it, revealing a secret passage. Alright, let's go ahead and go to the secret passage. Once you go inside, it is pitch black. Remember that lantern? Go ahead and click the lantern, and there's snakes. The snakes will proceed, and if they get too close, they will bite you, so you have to use the snake oil once again. And you'll go up to the next level. And this one, this one took me a second, because the cheese that we use from the trap, if you throw it at them, it just makes them hungrier, and then they eat you. So what you actually have to do is throw it behind them. Now, I'm not going to spoil what happens next here in a moment, because I thought it was kind of funny. So we're going to do the snake thing again. Snakes just leave. Apparently they don't run into the rats. And then you have the rats, so we know we have the cheese. And then you hear gunshots happening behind you. That's what Steve is commenting on. There's two exits right there, right? There's the left and the right. So the first time I thought, okay, well, let's go down the left. And they fall, and then you see the flames, and you find out the left passage is actually the furnace. And they give you a hint that I was too stupid to pick up on, that it says as the rats jump, you smell like a singeing smell, like a singeing fur. So I should have known that was the furnace or something along those lines. Clearly, the proper exit is the one to the right. With the rats, I don't know if it matters if you throw it on the left or the right, as long as you throw it away from you so that they leave. I don't know if you throw it to the right if something actually bad happens, but when you go through the right, you come out through the Rex. And then you go to press the button, and he chops down on the person. Now, you would think they're pinned in the teeth. You should be able to just unveil them to see who this person is that has been chasing you. But you don't. You suddenly just end up at the morgue, and the mortician is like, hey, we have we're doing this investigation. We understand that you were a part of it. You collected some evidence. So this first time, I'm going to spoil it for you, I purposely do it wrong. I pick a couple of things incorrectly so that I get the bad ending. Because Laura Bow, the Dagger of Amon Ra, has two endings. There is a bad ending that goes very horribly both for Laura Bow as well as a few other people that she's impacted, namely her father. And then there's the good ending that has a really happy ending. Life is great. So first, we'll do the bad ending. So we'll click a couple things that I know are intentionally completely wrong, just to get it wrong. One thing I will say is I wish during this part, it doesn't matter for me because I'm purposely doing it wrong, but I do wish there was a back. So that you can say, wait a minute, let me think about that. Because you might accidentally click a wrong box. And if you do, there's nothing you can do. You literally just have to suffer the consequences of picking incorrectly. So it says Laura Bow solves part of the mystery. Because I did it incorrectly. The killer ends up getting away. So Steve Dorian gives you a dagger, and you're like, how could you steal the dagger? And he's like, I didn't steal it. This is one of the fake ones from the gift shop, silly. Just wanted you to have like a keepsake from this whole great night. I don't know if finding a bunch of dead bodies considers as a great night, something that you'd want to remember. But since it does have the poor ending, it's going to go through everyone and see what happens in terms of where they are. If they died, like Yvette talks about how she stays a plastered statue at the museum, which seems very morbid. Like Ziggy's head stays on the display and stuff like that. But more importantly is what happens to Laura Bow at the end. For her father, he ends up so ashamed, I think he takes his own life, if I remember correctly, or something along those lines. But Laura Bow, yeah, because murder gets away, does not go well for her. It's very reminiscent of the beginning, with a little more violence. He ends up solving the case because you didn't, and he gets a prize for it. becomes a millionaire. That doesn't change. He goes ahead and retires, but before he retires, he does something. And there's your father, who unfortunately does not have a good ending. The dagger does eventually end up back in Egypt, as it should. But what happens with Laura? Well, here we go. She gets gunned down in her motel bedroom. And I did a little scream, and it says what really happened, and then I properly select the choices. It turns out that the murderer throughout all is our wonderful detective. Most of what he wanted for the other people that were killed by him, it was for financial gain, except for Yvette. Yvette was either jealousy or revenge. You could choose either of those answers. And then for who was being impersonated, Watney Little was impersonating one of the doctors. Can't remember his name. But yeah, after that, you see the good ending, which is nice and great. And things go well for Laura. But anyway, it's just going to go through those choices. Like I said, if you enjoy what I do, or even if you're remotely interested in what I do, click the like and the subscribe, hit the notification button so you know when I do a new video. I do want to get back to doing this on a regular basis, but life being what it is right now, it is extremely busy. My wife has a number of medical issues that we're going through, so that has consumed most of my time. But yeah, I definitely enjoy doing these, and I love revisiting these Sierra games and playing them without a walkthrough or anything like that. Oh, here's a good ending where you see the detective in jail smashing rocks and how he swears to get revenge on Laura, but never does because there is no Laura Bohr 3. But yeah, I do enjoy doing these, so if you enjoy it, also feel free to tell other people about it. Like, word of mouth is the best form of advertising. A, because it's free, and also because it is coming from a trusted source. When you're talking about something that you enjoy, the individuals that you're talking to ideally trust you and trust your opinion. So if you want to tell others about it, share the link and say, hey, this guy's really cool. He's kind of funny sometimes, not usually, but he's all right. Just go ahead and like and subscribe to his video because he needs it. Just give mercy on him. Whatever you want to say about the video channel, as long as it's somewhat good, that'd be greatly appreciated. And as always, man, feel free to check out all the other videos I already have. Some of which, one of the most popular ones that I seem to think happen on my channel, ironically, isn't any of the Sierra games or even me talking about a Sierra game, which is not shocking because who wants to listen to me talk? But it's mostly the Johnny Castaway screensaver. Johnny Castaway, the screensaver, was by far my favorite screensaver that ever existed. I actually currently behind me, I have a Windows Vista machine that is running it essentially nonstop, so that whenever I want to relax and kind of like take a moment away, I literally just turn around and there's Johnny, like right now. He's just staring back at me, stuck on this island. Moon is glistening on the ocean water. But yeah, so that is something else you can check out. I have a number of those. Some of them are even like 10 hours long, so you literally just put that on full screen and it's just like watching the screensaver all over again. But the main thing I do here really is playing these Sierra games without a walkthrough, revisiting these games. I will eventually get to some games that I've actually not played. Most of the Sierra games, I was such a fanatic that I played most of them. But there is stuff like Rise of the Dragon that I think I may have played once but never finished. Lighthouse, I know I played. I don't think I ever finished Lighthouse. And there's just a number of other games like Shivers and Shivers 2. I remember playing them. I don't remember how they end, so I'm not sure if I ever finished those games. So a lot of those games coming up will definitely be like first time playing, and will probably all be like 9 hours long for the original playthrough because I won't know what I'm doing. But the talk will be shorter like this one. So go ahead, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and just know that I love you. Thanks.